So many people coming through now with a girl can't work nights because she sees dead people.
Fuck off.
Yeah, like.
Oh, behave. Stop it. She sees dead people.
I'm a firearms officer. I've got fucking things to do, mate. Like, I've got to go around and look cool and do shit.
I've got colouring books to fill in. I've got protein shakes to make, you know.
Because if they just gave everyone the actual truth and said this wee bitch running about with a balaclava and a knife, and God forbid the police officers put hands on and arrested them, like, no one would bat an eyelid. They'd be like, good.
The offender was at large and came back to the house and beat the absolute living daylights of the officer that was single crewed. And that was literally not that long ago.
And so do you think cops should be routinely armed? Thousands of people listen to this podcast every single month. However, only a fraction of those people actually follow and rate the podcast. Can I ask you a favour? If you want this podcast to keep on growing, if you want these stories, the advocacy for emergency services, and giving a voice to the emergency services to continue, please follow, like, and rate the podcast. It helps more than you know, and it helps the podcast to grow. Fair, I probably need my glasses on because I'm actually pretty fucking blind without my glasses on. Specsavers keep sending me messages and emails and sending people to my house saying that your eye test is like 2 years overdue, and I'm still driving a car, so it's probably quite dangerous. But anyway, hello everybody. We are here again with the Fantastic Jobs Podcast, a place where emergency services can share their rant, stories, and accolades anonymously, a place where we get to the dark, the gritty, and all the fun stuff when it comes to emergency services. In case you haven't noticed, we are having a threesome today. I'm joined by two exceptionally brilliant guests today. So, Emma, if you just want to introduce yourself for our wonderful, amazing audience, please.
I am Emma from Blue Light Coaching. You probably see me as the blunt female ex-police officer that gets people in the shape of their life.
Well, that's very succinct and very straight to it. That's an elevator pitch.
Yeah.
You should be on Dragon's Den with that.
I
Listen, here's
try.
what I do. Here's where I am. This is what I do. Shut the fuck up. Greg, tell me about you, pal, with your big beefy arms.
Basically the same, mate. I am Greg Hamill. I was a cop with Police Scotland for 7 years, and yeah, feel like coaching as well. I'm also unapologetically blunt about things.
And a fellow hat wearer too. A fellow hat wearer indoors. Have you got shorts on?
Negative. No.
Oh, you got leg sleeves on? No.
Jumper, mate.
Wait, just the jumper. Okay.
Yeah.
This
He's
might become an
naked,
X-rated
naked
episode
from the
again.
waist down, mate.
Well, you know what? So am I. I do most episodes naked from the waist down, but no one can ever tell. You've just got me out with a little secret there. Okay, fantastic. Right, so how come you guys started the Blue Light Coaching then? What was the crack with that? Like, what kind of mission have you guys got? What do you want to achieve with what you do?
Just to get as many people fit for the job as possible, mate. Like, I always stayed on top of my fitness and stuff, and then it kind of happened naturally. I just started working with a few guys from my office doing like nutrition training stuff, and then kind of got to the point that it was too busy to keep doing both jobs, so I had to pick one, and I put my career break in and made 2 cages approving it, so I just put my notes in the next week, and then that was me.
And was it a case that you left because you was unhappy with the job, or was it this mattered to you more? You were more passionate about doing this, so then you ended up resigning as a result?
I loved being a cop. So I never actually wanted to leave. I think my ideal thing would have been able to balance both, but I just couldn't. And then I think it was more the lifestyle side of things that I thought about with this, like getting older, family, the freedom side of things. I think that was what swayed me towards the end to just do this full time. Because it was a long thought process, like going from the kind of stable income to like self-employed. It's quite stressful, you know what I mean?
There's a lot to be said about, because I think a lot of people do get stuck in that. It's almost like an institutionalization, I find, not just in the police, but in the emergency service in general, and certainly when someone's in a career for a long time, is they sit there and think, well, what else could I possibly do? And I like the fact that you said you weren't unhappy before you left. It was a tough decision because you loved what you do, but you also love this as well. There's a lot of people that I find who are deeply unhappy with their job, but they get stuck in this mindset of, well, I can't do anything else. And there's something to be said when people do take that plunge. I loved my job. when I was in, but it got to the point where I couldn't do what I wanted to do, both in the job and out the job. So I then had to take that plunge as well. I think it's just a good mentality to know that there are options out there. But if we can make people happy in the job, certainly by the coaching, by fitness, mental health, sleep, prioritization, diet, and everything else, then you can make the world, you can make your own world a more a better place. What about you, Emma? What was your journey from joining the cops to getting to where you are now?
So I joined the police. So I'm ex-army, so I did 7 years in the army. And then I joined the police 2019. And then spent 5 years in. 2 years of that was firearms. And I basically, how I met Greg was I got fat. Like
Oh,
I got fat and I reached out to Greg for coaching. And I think, how long would it be like coaching been going by that point? Was it
A long time,
18?
mate. I think I technically started working with people in like 2018, and then I left the job. So it was basically full time from 2021, and I think you came on in 2023 January.
Yeah. And then Greg took me on, well, took me on a lot long after as a coach. So it was Greg initially, and then it was me and Greg for quite a while, and then we kind of just did it together after.
that's an advertisement for for Greg in particular, isn't it? You know, why did you join? Well, I saw how beefy and how cool this guy was, and he got me to a point where I was a fucking machine. So I thought, yeah, you know what? Why not join him? So, mate, that's ace. And what are the common things you find which cops come to you, or blue light employees come to you with their most common complaint?
Mainly like weight stuff, mate, to be honest. But I think one that most people don't talk about is like the mental health side of things. Like especially with guys, I notice it, and they notice that their mental health starts to improve. And I don't really think they thought it was an issue before they started, but then when they're going to the gym and they're in a good routine and they've lost weight and they start to feel more confident and their relationships get better, like they just feel better day to day. I think that's the one thing that me and Emma speak about, is like the mental health and the energy side of things, like to actually get up on your days off and go out and do stuff and not just sit about the house.
That was a big thing for me, certainly after nights. If I'd worked nights, the first day was a write-off. Probably the second day was a bit of a write-off as well. You just said no energy, had low energy as well. But what I also found was I was getting into a really bad habit, in particular after lates. So I don't know what your shift pattern was like, but say we would do like either like a 5-3, so you've 5 in the afternoon to 3 in the morning, or you would do like a 2 midnight, something like that. I'd get in, and in order to then unwind, because lates typically were quite fucking chaotic, they're quite the carnage shift, just like a random Wednesday afternoon would be mental, you know. Um, so you'd come home, and then I'd find myself, I'd turn on the telly, I'd have my phone in my hand, I'd have a beer in the other hand, I'd have a beige meal of just like a kid's tea, which don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with a kid's tea, sticking some in the oven with some tomato sauce, absolutely brilliant. But I was finding then I was getting into bed and I was like, why can't I relax? Why am I thinking about work? Why can't I shut down? And it's because you've had such a, I mean, you by all means, correct me if I'm wrong, but because you've had a day of just adrenaline spikes and probably you've seen some shit which is maybe playing on your mind a little bit, you're sitting there, and because you're not actually digesting it, you're kind of turning off, aren't you? You're shutting out of what's happened in the shift because frankly you just don't want to think about anything. You don't really want to think about work. You don't want to think about the shit you've dealt with. But that that adrenaline spike, that rumination is still there, and it will continue to be there until you address it. And I think certainly for me, because yes, I went to the gym and I did other things, but because I wasn't doing that mental health work, that led to me having like quite a bad panic attack. And I was always very, very resilient. I was told you're very resilient. I was often compared to that, that gif where there's the dog sat in the room and the room is burning and he's got a cup of tea saying this is fine. I was told like that was me. And then it was very surprising to a lot of my supervisors when I went off sick. And I said, like, I just literally walked into work one day, opened up a workload, and I just had a fucking breakdown, absolute panic attack, and I had to leave. And when I think back to it, I'm thinking, well, I was going to the gym and I was doing things on my day off, but I was thinking, well, I wasn't really processing what I was dealing with. So there's that compounding effect there of the stress, the silent building up of what can happen.
So that's what people really find good about like me and Greg and obviously all the coaches is that you can, when you speak to people, you process things. Like that's how you can like, you're not just going to the gym, shutting away, just kind of turning off. You're actually like talking about it. So it then becomes real when you talk about it. So it just, it really, I mean, I just had a client today message me saying, can she have a chat because she went to a really shit job yesterday. So it was just kind of like, I need to chat. Can I process it? And now she's gone away and she's like, thank you so much. So it's like,
This video was sponsored by my best-selling police memoir, The Job's Fuck Secret Diary of a Police Officer. After 10 years in the police service, I finally left and I decided I need to speak out. This book does a deep dive into police corruption, the real reason why the police force is falling apart, and things you will never hear in the mainstream media. You can check it out in the link in the description of this video. You could also grab some merchandise and support me on Patreon. And now, without further ado, enjoy the video. Well, it's funny you should mention that, Emma, because I was listening to a podcast the other day and they were talking about literally that, about verbalizing the things what were on your mind, and they were saying that's one of the reasons they believe that therapy works quite well. Also, you've got the techniques of therapy and the identifying what is actually wrong, but majority of therapy is you are verbalizing what you are feeling and how you are thinking, and things which you potentially haven't dealt with or haven't wanted to address. You're making it real. And there's also something to be said about, if something lives in your mind, bringing it out of your mind and into the world and actually addressing it, speaking about it, it removes it from your brain. um or it makes it less of a brain soup. I always call it like a brain soup, and this is why I'm a bit of a big advocate for journaling, and not even necessarily journaling, but if you maybe can just voice note yourself or speak to a friend about the things which are bothering you, it makes it so that it's no longer in your head and you're no longer just ruminating over it. But guys, I think what you guys do is absolutely excellent, and I think anyone who has a speciality in supporting people, because the reason why we join the emergency services is because we want to help people, and it's unfortunate that we're not able to do that in our job because of the lifestyle and the lack of support and everything else which comes with the job itself. So it's almost like the job itself breaks people who are there to help people by not supporting them either, which is why I think when it comes to stuff like blue light coaching, it's a very commendable thing what you guys do, because you are that support service, that support network for the people who we will ring in a crisis. And we want the people who we ring in a crisis to be their best possible selves, and the people themselves want to be the best possible selves and able to help people. So it all supports and helps each other. Okay, wonderful. So we've got a story of the week, and there's a few different things which I wanted to talk about, but I've been following the Lorne Castle thing for quite a little while, and Lorne Castle did say he wanted to come onto my main YouTube channel, but he was, and I wanted to have a conversation with him, but I think he just kind of got a bit burnt out with everybody wanting to talk to him, and he was up for it, and then never got back to me, which is totally fine. I can completely understand why I think that. Um, but I've been following it anyway, and he has won his appeal. His appeal has been upheld. So, does that mean he might potentially be reinstated, or is he potentially looking at some compensation for unfair dismissal? Maybe, I don't know. But what do you guys think about the entire Castle situation with what happened with him?
I think it's the one thing that annoys me about the job is good cops doing their job and then getting shafted for it. That's the only thing that I hate about it. And you see it more and more and more now is folk like that who are keen to go out and do their job, and they do their job and then the job just shits on them and they have to go through all this shit. It's the one thing that infuriates.
I think the media as well like to show like a snapshot. So they'll show on body worn video a snapshot, but actually you don't show the whole picture. I think what he did was fine. We all say things in a moment of heat, like a heated moment and stuff like that. So, he needs to. I personally wouldn't return to a job that did that to me.
No, neither would I.
Like, what did he actually do?
He called someone a little bitch. He and allegedly grabbed him around the throat, which he didn't, because we've all seen the video. He didn't grab him around the throat. But there's a few things. There's a few things to this. Firstly, police get told you're being too soft. The police aren't tough on crime anymore. They're being too soft. All right, okay. Now we've got a decorated officer who's helped loads of people. He's grabbed hold of a lad who had a fucking knife on a balaclava. Let's face it. If you're walking around with a balaclava out in town, you're not exactly just going to the shop for your mum for a bottle of milk, are you? Unless you're probably planning on stealing it. So what's the issue there is that cops are being told they're too soft, and yet when you get someone who's robust and grabs hold of someone and treats them the way that they should be treated and uses, you know, all right, you might disagree that the language he used was inappropriate. Oh, sorry, you might agree it was inappropriate. That's fine. What's happened to supervisors just going, come here, bit out of order that, calm down next time. So there's that aspect that it had to go straight to disciplinary.
I don't think most people in the UK would bat an eyelid at that, though, for what he's actually done. There was a guy with a balaclava and a knife who was arrested physically by the police, and the police has now been sacked. Like,
Exactly. And what message does that send out to people who want to carry knives? I can carry a knife. I think the lad got a fucking community order, if that, for carrying a knife. Now, I thought we were tough on knife crime. So not only is the lad basically got a slap on the wrist, don't do it again, which he probably likely will do. We're then saying that we're not going to look after the officers who are there to protect us and deal with that. And it also shows the guys that, well, if I get arrested for having a knife, chances are the cop will get in trouble. So I don't like the police, so I'm just going to carry a knife because fuck all happens to me anyway. So absolute bollocks with that whole thing. And I know there are some critics. But what's funny is I remember saying this on X. I remember saying some people respond better to being sworn at. And there was somebody on yeah, exactly. And there was somebody on X messaging saying, "No, I would never respond good to being sworn." Someone swears at me. Yeah, it's called context, mate. It's called context. If you have little old lady Doris who's lost her car keys and you walk up to her and say, "What you doing, you daft bitch?" Like, she's probably not going to respond well to that. But if you have someone who's in and out of the system, has been dragged up, and is out shoplifting every day and has got a drug habit, you walking over to them and going, "Oh, excuse me, sir, please will you stand there as I'm a police constable?" They're going to go, "Fuck off, mate." Like, it's about how you talk to people. Now, and there's also, I think, another element of this which people don't necessarily talk about. And I think that's when it comes to PTSD. So, and empathy burnout. And one thing which I've done a bit of research into is when it comes to PTSD, is it can make people much more reactive and much more amplified with their emotions. So potentially we could argue that the reason why an officer like Longcastle, if you agree that he acted inappropriately, that could also be a reflection on the police force that his well-being has not been looked after to the point where he's potentially struggling with burnout and PTSD. So then he did react the way he did.
Well-being in the police is renowned for being a little bit shy, if I'm going to be honest. And I've been at the other end of like trim and all that sort of stuff. So I went to two jobs in pretty much 2 days apart. So I went to a guy that said he'd stabbed himself. It ended up being like the tiniest little nick and not a trim thing at all. So I got an email from trim for that. The next day I went to a child death, didn't get trim for it. And I needed trim for that. I was just like, I need to speak to someone like immediately. But I never got an email, never got any trim for that. But I had to literally approach someone for it. So the welfare in the police needs it needs a lot more money pumping into it. It needs a lot of work. I've been through counselling in the police, and the actual counselling itself was really good, but to actually get there was horrific. You had to literally badger for it. I was just like, why am I badgering? You should be offering this to me.
Yeah, I agree with that. And welfare does seem to be the thing that gets stripped away the quickest. If we need to save money. I did a little Instagram reel today, and it was like about the police bulletin board. It's all about, it's loads of stuff to do with, we've got this thing on and this day on and this agenda and this agenda. And then right at the bottom, it's, "Are you all right? Like, do you need to talk to anyone?" I find a lot of it is it's weak, the support which gets put forward, because it's almost like if we do have an officer who gets burnt out and they say, "Well, the force never supported with mental health," we can point to this obscure day we put on at one point and say, "What do you mean?" So I think it's like a HR arse covering exercise. My old force, to be fair, weren't too bad. I mean, they weren't the best by any stretch of the imagination, but when it comes to who I worked for, they weren't too bad. I had a trim after I went to quite a horrific murder. I had a trim after that. When I was going through a lot of personal stuff, I had counselling, similar to you, Emma. Found it really, really good. The thing what I hear a lot about is that the organisation will put in a little bit of support initially, and then if you need additional support after that, it's like, okay, well, you have to go speak to your doctor now, or you have to go and sit on a waiting list for 12 months for a thingy appointment, a counselling appointment, and I just don't think it's good enough. So in regards to the Long Castle thing, then, are you two both in agreement that you wouldn't go back after that, and he should try and sue the absolute arse off their force as much as possible?
100%. Even like the media companies and stuff that have promoted it wrong. Because if they just gave everyone the actual truth and said this wee bitch running about with a balaclava and a knife, and God forbid the police officers put hands on and arrested them, like no one would bat an eyelid. They'd be like, good. It's just because of the way they portray it in the media. Like,
It's similar to the shoot. Like, I mean, it was a shooting in London. It wasn't just a guy a guy grabbing a knife off a teenager is bad enough because you can still be killed for it. But the media only portray one thing, and the thing is with it, the police kind of play up to it. Oh, the public are fucking. Sorry, I'm swearing. The public
I've
are
sworn about 50 times in this conversation so
all
far,
right.
mate, so don't worry about swearing.
I swear like every other sentence. So I just kind of think the police play up to it, like, oh, the public are really pissed off that this guy got shot that was actually trying to mow down a police officer. So let's put that officer through a year and a half of fucking investigation and make their life a living hell. And then, oh, let's see whether we're going to give them anonymity. That's why I left the firearms. I did a whole, like, literally 3 pages of notice and was like, this is shit, this is shit, this is shit. I'd rather be on response, mate, because I don't get shit all over.
I'd help you if you pull the trigger. Like when you're given a gun, because potentially you're going to have to deal with somebody who's, running around with a gun. It's the worst possible situation, isn't it? And that's why we deploy officers who have the option of lethal force. But fucking God help you if you pull that trigger. Like I know people who have wanted to go on firearms for years, and then they went on it, and then they've seen how much scrutiny they're under if they ever even just draw the weapon, never mind pull the trigger. And they've gone, you know what? It's just not worth it. What? Shoot somebody, and then somebody who wasn't there scrutinize every single decision I made leading up to that point. And then next thing you know, we could be facing trial for murder and get, my life's over. It's not something I would want to do.
like it's more than likely that you'll end up going to trial. I think now. I think they should just. I think it's the media companies as well that are massively responsible for all of this stuff. The way they portray things in the media.
Companies are there to make money. They're there to make money and to get, and to survive, aren't they? And I always say this when it comes to media companies. They're not going to tell the full story. They're going to tell it from their political lens. And they're going to tell the most incendiary, clickbaity, rage baity, controversial point of view as possible, because that's what drives engagement and that's what makes them money. Telling the news to a news company is almost secondary. It's it's that's just how they make the money, but it makes sense that they're going to portray things in a bad light because that's what gets people talking about it. But I mean, for just talking about firearms for a sec, I understand why they are under so much scrutiny, because you are potentially ending someone's life, aren't you? So I understand that it has to be really scrutinized and looked at if you're giving someone the ability to do that. But it seems like you are guilty until proven innocent in that kind of situation. Is that something what you found?
Yeah, so do you know what happens after a firearm incident?
Don't they get suspended for a little bit? Immediate suspension or something?
Not all the time. So you basically go into something called a PIP, so a post-incident procedure. So you basically get all put in this room. You're not allowed to speak to one another about the incident. You all have to give your separate statements. You're in there for about a further 10 to 12 hours after your shift. So if you're on a 10-hour shift, then you're there for 22 hours. Um, they basically feed you, you're fucking knackered, and then I think a couple of days later you then give another statement about the event once you've had kind of time to process what's gone on. But that's basically, so it's if there's a discharge of a firearm and someone's been shot, or if someone's been killed within the incident, that you go into like basically a post-incident procedure PIP.
Is that for welfare purposes? Like to make sure all the cops are
It's
fine?
more so, I think it's more for evidence gathering. It's not really for welfare.
But I guess, why is it 10 hours though? I thought it was maybe like a death in custody or something, like in case something happened after.
No,
So they just take
no,
all your
literally, they seize everything. They will literally take everything off you, seize it. So we had a shooting in Kent. I wasn't involved in it. This wasn't that long ago. But I know some people that were, and that literally went straight to a PIP, and then nobody heard anything more about it. They didn't hear like anything else. So it was literally just a case of, it's gone straight to a PIP. Oh, okay, we found that this has been absolutely fine, and that hasn't gone to. I think it's got.
PIP thing. Like, do they almost look at some to see if they can release you or?
They will basically, I think I'm pretty sure from memory, every single incident involving any form of firearms goes straight to IOPC anyway. But the IOPC can look at something and go, doesn't really need any more investigation. You're well within your right. Like the guy in Kent had like put loads of literal like bombs around, like mini bombs, and then he'd come out with a I don't know what he was fucking doing. He was with a stab vest and everything, so he got shot. Um, I don't know any more than that because I just have to go off what the media say. But it's and then obviously compared to the guy that got drove out in London, the IOPC have looked at that and gone, no, we need more investigation. So it's kind of different.
If you enjoy these kind of conversations, so why not become a Patreon? You can support me for as little as $4.99 a month. As a Patreon, you'll get advanced access to videos, articles, behind the scenes footage, and more. For just the price of a coffee a month, you can help me bring these important conversations to the world. Just simply click the link in the description or scan this QR code right here. There was one I did a video on it, and I can't remember exactly where it was, to be fair. It was a lad with a crossbow. He'd stabbed his neighbour, and then he was running around with a crossbow. And one thing, and he got shot. He didn't die. He got shot, and he was given life-saving first aid and everything else. One thing with that which really shocked me was that it was a single firearms officer deployed. There wasn't even two of them. It was just one guy with a gun, and he had his shield and all this gear. And fuck me, the pressure what would have been on him. Like, what was going through that officer's mind? I mean, I wouldn't have wanted to, I mean, I've dealt with some mad shit, but I wouldn't have wanted to be there deciding, do I pull this trigger or not? And you can hear the cop is shouting at this guy, put the crossbow down. You should hear him because he's going, I don't want to go to prison for murder if I've got this wrong. So anyway, the guy got shot, and it's just like the stress. And it's so easy for somebody who's not there to point the finger and go, I think you should have done this. You weren't the one having a crossbow aimed at you. You weren't the one on your own. You weren't the one adrenaline pumping through your system. And you weren't the one who's thinking, if I don't pull this trigger, this might happen. If I do pull this trigger, this might happen. Because there's also the thing of, if they don't shoot the person, what could possibly happen to them then? So, I mean, Emma, you're probably the best person to talk to about this then, because I do wonder this. So, say if I'm a firearms officer and I go to an incident, there's a bloke there with a knife and he stabs somebody and he comes running towards me, and for whatever reason I don't shoot him, and he then goes and does something else. What kind of reprimand could I be looking at there?
I'm trying to rack my brain because there's a certain thing we learn in firearms. It's all about to do with threat. So like I made this mistake in training. I had a guy running towards me. The only thing I had out was my G36, which is my long arm. And I was like, shit, I need a taser because it's, to me, in my mind, it was like less lethal. And I got my taser out, but by that point, it already stabbed my mate. So the fucking trainer went obviously spear at me. and was like, you need to shoot him. Like, but so you could almost like neglect, isn't it? It's almost like you're neglecting your duty of protecting your oppo in every like. I bang on about it all the time. You're not protecting your oppo if you're not fit for duty, and you've also got to make that decision. But I know if I had my long arm out now and someone was running at me with a knife, they'd get shot.
And so, do you think cops should be routinely armed?
No.
I think
No.
the firearms cops is a good thing. Like in Police Scotland, we didn't even have tasers on response, but I think it's a good thing now that response cops do have tasers, and there's still only a couple. Like we'll have a couple of taser cops per shift. But I think for the most part, I mean, even all the things that we dealt with over the years, it was relatively straightforward to de-escalate most of them. Like with knives, folk was sort of like where I worked. There was always stabbings, people running about the scheme with swords. Like no one got shot. Whereas if we were all armed, loads of people would have got shot. So I think firearms is good to have it as like a specialist role. I like the fact that some cops have now got tasers on shift, but I don't think every single cop should have it done.
I think with the level of training what you get, that would have to be much more intense and amplified if you then give everybody a potential firearm. And the fitness test would have to be much more robust as well. You basically have to do a firearms course on your initial training as well. About you, Emma, do you think a cop should be routinely armed with a sidearm?
No. Absolutely fucking not. Honestly, I've seen cops that are scared of their own shadow, so they'd get that out and they'd fucking shoot anything. Like they would be like, oh, and I'd be like, what?
Your own reflection.
Honestly, mate. So the PSNI, the obviously Northern Ireland Police Service, Northern Ireland, they are armed with a sidearm, and rightly so. Over there, it's
Different world, isn't it?
yeah. Oh my! I mean, I've coached a few people from PSNI, and it is a different world. But their tests to actually get that are a lot more physical, and there is something that I think we should probably take a leaf out of. But no way should every cop be given a gun. No, absolutely fucking not.
I think we're all in
Taser, I
agreement on that
agree,
one. Yeah,
but not a gun. Yeah, absolutely
I
not.
don't know if maybe do something where a couple of cops on shift were like firearms cops that went to normal calls. Because a lot of the firearms cops in Scotland feel like they're kind of wasted because they don't actually get sent to anything.
I went to normal calls.
Yeah, well, they're just getting told to go and stuff. Like stuff that should be firearms calls, like a lot of times they're not getting approved for it, so they're just going to sit in offices, and then the normal cops will go.
a lot of firearms bobbies used to go to like machete jobs. If there was a mention of like a machete or an axe or something like that, they did send a firearm bobby. But I mean, I say that sometimes you just get the inspector over the radio going, yeah, just remember stay safe principles. What, don't get stabbed? All right, nice one. Yeah, I'll remember that.
Run away.
I quite enjoyed that chat. I didn't think we'd be having that chat today. It's always fun when we get talking about things. All right, so rants and stories now. So enjoy this part. So if you have a story, what you want to send in, they're all anonymous and they're all sanitized. You can Instagram the Jobs Fuck Podcast or email thejobpod25@gmail.com. So I've actually split this into 3 different parts here. So we'll see how we get on, ranging from rants, funny stories, and then a personal favorite of mine, cake finds, because they're always fucking hilarious. So I have one here, which is a rant. And it'd be interesting to hear your 2 thoughts on this. So the biggest issue at the moment in my force is that Professor Sanders' department and the threat of it looming over every cop's head for minor things, even down to the fact that cops are now being told it's unprofessional to have an open can of pop or energy drink on their desk in the response room, and it must be in a mug. It's beyond pathetic, and the stress is destroying officers. There's almost 50 officers from a small constabulary, all currently on suspension. Must be something in the water there. Some for the most pathetic things, with Police Federation reps saying that they're breaking the rules by suspending when they could be moving cops to other areas whilst an issue is investigated. Cops are working in constant fear of being suspended. Now, I got a message from an officer actually who said he's 6 years in. I'm assuming it's a he, I don't know, saying that they were 6 years in. And they said they were actually leaving because they were afraid of one day saying something or doing something wrong and then them getting sacked for gross misconduct over, frankly, fuck all. And that then going on their employment record. So they were like they were jumping off the Titanic before it hit the iceberg, just in case it hit the iceberg. You know what I mean? So what's your thoughts on that? 50 officers in the constabulary being currently on suspension, overzealous professional standards department, and not able to have an open can of pop in the response room.
It's like being at school again, isn't it? Well, I heard something from one of my clients. He said in his force, I won't name the force, in his force, you are not allowed to say the word cunt, basically. You've been banned from saying it.
Fuck off.
Say it. Like, yeah, like I was like,
Yeah, but I
the
mean,
best fucking
we
word.
need more context of that. Like, granted, you know, superintendent walks in, I hear you cunt. Oh, you can't say that, but just why?
I don't know. It's just like the banter in the briefing room, and then he told me something yesterday, and it was just equally as stupid. I can't even remember. But it's another thing as well of like you know if you was to say something wrong, like let's say I'm here, I'm sitting in the room, I don't particularly overhear what you're saying, and you say something inappropriate. I don't hear it, I don't challenge it, I walk out, and then I'm immediately under the spotlight for not challenging inappropriate fucking behaviour, and I'm like. They just got you by the balls. They got you by the meat and two veg when you sign up because you're like, well, you're not challenging it.
Well, I know a group of people that got in a lot of shit because it was in during initial training, and you know the big WhatsApp group. WhatsApp groups are notorious for getting people into shit. Anyway, so they had like an exam coming up or something, and one of them shared some questions which were on the last exam for people to. Anyway, one person out of those 20 like dobbed him in and said, "Oh, he shared this," and then everybody got fucked because only one person dobbed him in. So everybody was under the same kind of spotlight. Um, but yeah, it's that whole thing of you know. Uh, there's a thing of not challenging people if it's try again. There's a thing of not challenging somebody if you hear something strictly inappropriate. Like if I was sat in a restroom and someone started making loads of really racist comments about people, I'm like, mate, fucking, you know, calm down. It's not okay. That's okay. Just a challenge. There's a difference between then going straight to the supervisor and going, do you know, Jimmy's racist. So it's that I think a low level challenge. He needs to be brought back, but also not hold everybody under the guise of you should have said something because somebody may have found that offensive retrospectively. Uh, because you can only challenge something if you yourself find it inappropriate. If you don't find it inappropriate, you won't think to challenge it.
And then the message you can then get fucked for not challenging it. So people will then be more likely to challenge stuff just so they don't get shafted for not.
Just in case.
Challenge.
Yeah.
I was about to say that Charing Cross documentary. I'm surprised like only 8 cops got just suspended for it because I'm not surprised the whole station didn't go all fucking under for not challenging inappropriate fucking stupid behaviour, whatever the fuck they go about nowadays.
One of the officers who got sacked is willing to do an interview on my channel, which would be interesting.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. Also, the BBC asked me to go down and jump on a panel show with them to discuss that panorama. I told them to get fucked. Like, don't fucking don't slam officers and cherry pick content which puts forward a particular political narrative that all cops are racist, misogynist bastards, when we know that's not the case, and then expect an ex-Bobby who advocates for officers to go down to what? Like get berated by you all again? Nah, I'm not giving you more airtime. You can piss off. So, yeah, potentially that's going to happen in the future. But, yeah, I mean, I've heard just on this. I've heard of officers being bollocked for like sitting back with their feet on the table. Like, all right, you know what? I'll have that. He just looks messy and unprofessional. You know, you're at work, you're not sat in your lounge, but sitting there with a can of Monster or a can of open can of pop, told like that's unprofessional. Like, nah, get a fucking grip, mate.
Like, why would you even listen to PSD? Because surely you can't lose your job or get suspended for having an open can of juice in an office.
People just want an easy life, don't they? And you know, if they're constantly getting bollocked over something, they'll be like, "Oh, you can't be doing that." Well, why? Why? Who's going to Who's going to zap me? So I understand why people do it, but it's absolute bollocks. And as well with that, just going on the going back to the challenge thing, like you said, Greg, if you are worried about not challenging stuff and getting in the shit, you're more likely to then challenge the smallest thing just in case. On a response shift, you're potentially relying on people to help you and save your life if you get into the shit. That doesn't breed a trustworthy, cohesive, strong workforce, does it? It doesn't bring camaraderie. It breeds snakes and backstabbing and doing people over, and that's not
And I think that's being
that's not the
taught
way
now at
to
the
run a block.
colleges when people are going through like the colleges to get into the police. Like that's now being taught to challenge stuff. Even when I joined in 2014, you literally just get told to shut up and listen to the truth. Like, don't fucking question anything. Don't say anything. Come in and make tea for everyone, and just shut the fuck up for the next 2 years. And that was what you did.
When I joined, I was told, you're going to hear inappropriate things. You're going to hear jokes which you don't think are okay. You're going to hear people be actually quite, I know, rude or dismissive about something they've potentially just been to. It's their way of coping with it. It's a gallows humor. It's part of the culture. Obviously, there's a fine line between gallows humor and making light of a situation to cope and to make, help process something, and being downright blatantly disrespectful about something in, not a good way. So it's teaching yourself and teaching new recruits on what is that line, whether you should report something or not. So in GMP, I I'll edit that bit out. I'll start that again. In my force, hey, in my force, we have fucking hell, try again. In my force that I've just been in for 8 years, we have now started introducing key performance indicators via our inspector, detailing required arrests, vehicle stops, and all sorts of other bollocks. They're even threatening to impede pay progression for officers if they don't meet these targets.
So, fun fact, we had this in firearms. We actually had a Super Nintendo. It was an absolute chopper. I can say that now. I'm out. He can go fuck himself. He knows who he is. And he literally would make us, I want this many arrests every set. I want this many stop searches every set. And I'm like, I'm a firearms officer. I've got fucking things to do, mate. Like, I've got to go around and look cool and do shit. So, like, you
I've got colouring
automatically,
books to fill in. I've got
yeah,
crayons to
crayons
buy.
to eat.
I've got protein shakes to make. What do you mean? I've got tattoos to get.
Fucking, but this was a funny bit, yeah. So there was only, I think there was we deployed 6 cars. So I remember 4 cars being all at custody suites because he wanted some shitty DA offender nicking that obviously local patrols couldn't do, and then a firearms job got called in, and we were all like, "No, it's us, busy, mate."
I'm helping you get your next promotion with these stats, you dickhead. The whole thing about KPIs in the police, and when it comes to, I've got I've fucking wrote a book on the subject, for fuck's sake. It's just not okay. We're dealing with people, we're dealing with nuance, we're dealing with individual circumstances. It's wrong and it should not happen. And the fact that they're threatening to impede pay progression for officers for unsatisfactory progression for the sake of making somebody else look better is an absolute joke. That is bullshit. And that inspector needs the bleeding arse handed to him. Greg, what do you think?
The same, mate. The same. We had it when I first joined. We had it with our first chief constable, and it was the same. Everybody fucking hated it because even at the end of the shift, you'd have to go in and you'd be like, right, we've had 20 stop searches for fucking weapons and drugs, and you'd have to get up the list. So it was just such a waste of time because then if you were sent to something or dealing with domestic, you'd be like, for fuck's sake, like you still need to go and fucking search 10 people on the way back to the fucking office later, just so we can hand names in to the gaffer. So yeah, I think it's good. And I think some cops are better at being proactive than other cops. So I think it depends on the cop as well. Like I used to like going out and doing stop searches all the time. That was what I enjoyed, but then other cops enjoyed going and doing other stuff. So
Yeah, I mean, locking up. I was never. I mean, similar to what you said, Greg. Like there was officers on my shift who would love to go and lock up. They'd lock up at fucking anything, or they'd go out and look for the wanteds or the remands, stuff like that. Like I never got any kind of joy from it. I never really. I mean, I had one of the highest arrest stats on my block, but that was because, and to be fair, my supervisor couldn't believe it. It's like, how have you got the highest arrest stat? He's like, because basically because they never saw me go out specifically looking for it. I was like, yeah, because when I go to a job, if someone needs lifting, I'll lift them. if I'm not scared of doing the hard work, but that doesn't mean I'm going to specifically go out looking for them, and I'm not going to lock up if I don't need to. So, yeah, KPIs and just on about there's something proactive policing. Like, yeah, if we have the staff and we have the time and resources to go out and actually be proactive, brilliant. We'd love to do that, but we can't because we don't have the staff. We're just about running it like minimum staffing for a lot of places has been the norm now. And to the fact that in some places now they've actually reduced minimum staffing, they created a new one called critical staffing. So minimum staffing is now fine so long as you're not at critical. You keep moving that bar further and further, soon it'll just be the sergeant parading on a shift going, well, it's just me today then. Oh well.
It's becoming dangerous though, isn't it? Like like I was speaking to a client the other day, and she was like, "Yeah, we paraded with three," and I was like, "What?" And there was actually a girl, so out of a local nick, that's probably about 40 minutes away from where I live. Um, a girl got basically single crewed, and she was on basically a scene guard for this house where there was a big GBH. Two double crewed car with the victim, and then everybody else was just kind of like chipping in to answer calls. The offender was at large and came back to the house and beat the absolute living daylights of the officer that was single crewed, and that was literally not that long ago. So it was it's so fucking dangerous now with crewings and the state of the police. It's so dangerous for the officers that are there. That's why we always bang on about being fit and healthy for the job, because you ain't got a lot of people to rely on. You got yourself and then your oppo, and that is it. Like you've got to put in a fucking good shift if someone comes
Especially in
at
the
you.
first couple of minutes. You know how fucking long that couple of minutes takes when you're rolling about by yourself with people waiting for the signs to come up. Like, yeah, 100%.
It's like the longest fucking time.
Yeah, if you're struggling with someone and you shout for help or you press that red button, it might only be 3 minutes. But 3 minutes while you're on your own, and you're fighting for your life and someone's trying to fucking rearrange your legs, like that's a long time. Such a long time. Especially if you work in quite a rural area too, and backup's like 15 minutes away on a blue light. That's I mean, if I was a dictator of the world, I'd say like single crewing has to stop. Uh, and double crewing has to be the standard without exception. If you'd single crewed, then then you're doing custody watch or you're doing, you know, the things which aren't risky. We need to stop single crewing cops. It's not okay. Um, okay, so this is a bit of another one, and this is to be the last rant. What we do. So my force was not vetting staff during COVID. And because they were desperate for staff, people were getting in who were testing positive. Fucking hell, testing positive for A class for drug. Were testing positive for Class A drugs. Had huge gambling debts and addictions. Links to organised crime. Fuck me. Links to organised crime. Severe health issues not compatible with being a cop. They only discovered these things when they tried to vet them after they'd already been sworn in. There was a written agreement that if they failed vetting, they could be sacked. But this then stood no weight as the Federation got involved and quoted employment law trumps force policy. One person who got in couldn't read or write English and struggled to speak, had severe learning and behavioural difficulties that had been reported. At training school, this person stripped down to the boxer shorts in front of all the other students for no apparent reason, having no hygiene and sinking of body odor, and for behaving in strange and odd ways. They would run back and forth randomly through offices full of police officers and call center staff shouting random things. Would answer his phone in the call center room and shout random things down the phone. He couldn't drive and had to catch the bus, and stated he couldn't work nights as had severe eye disabilities where even street lights would literally blind him and cause him to collapse. And he walked into a training course with his phone out recording people on the course for no apparent reason. It took the force nearly 2 years to remove him from the organization. And he even complained that the blue flashing lights were making him ill. Fuck me.
It's not that. What's
Yeah.
up with that? It sounds perfect.
Yeah, it sounds like he'd be a great officer, brilliant officer. I mean, I'll have that the police are struggling to recruit people, but Jesus fucking Christ, come on, do your due diligence on people beforehand. You know what I mean? It's a bit much that.
There's so many people coming through now with like, I mean, me and Greg were talking about one not long ago where it was like a girl can't work nights because she sees dead people.
Fuck
Yeah.
off.
Yeah, like
Oh, behave.
genuinely.
Stop it.
Yeah. Apparently, it's a genuine story because we know somebody that was on her shift.
Do you know she sees dead people?
Well, the word for it, what's the word for it?
Like
Is that
sixth sense,
clairvoyant?
psychic. Yeah.
So apparently she like does that as a thing as well, but she sees dead people, so she can't do night shifts.
I heard of one who wouldn't work nights, so refused to be single crewed at night because he was scared of the dark. I've heard that. I know someone who had that. It's like you're a goddamn you're a Bobby. What are
I
you doing?
think they should all be sacked. I genuinely think they should all be sacked. See if you can't do your job properly, mate, you're fucking gone.
Uh,
So I had
yeah.
a guy in training school. There's a guy in training school, right? And he went throughout the entirety of training school. He wasn't great, but he wasn't shit either. He was, okay. Muddled on along. And I said to him, "Oh, what shift you on?" And he was like, "Shifts? I get every Sunday off for church." And I was like, "No, you don't, mate." I said, "You're on shift." I said, "You could be working a Sunday." And he went, "Oh, I'll go hand in my notice then." Genuinely did. He went and handed in his notice and thought he'd have every weekend off.
Well, I think that's completely fair. You know, you need to pray. You need to go to church.
I just didn't know how joining the police he thought that he'd have every weekend off.
But see,
Like,
nowadays, I genuinely feel like somebody could say, I need to go to church on a Sunday and they would get Sundays off.
yeah, to be fair.
Stranger things that have happened. They've got fucking quiet rooms and therapy rooms and all that. And
It's
offices for folk.
backwards. It's absolutely backwards. I've heard of people who need emotional support snails. There was an officer who was in my force who they were on the response course and they had with them a teddy bear. They needed an emotional support bear because they were feeling anxious about the course and they demanded that they had their emotional support teddy bear with them at all times.
Mm.
Why is this person? Imagine that in a police interview. Who's this?
Yeah.
Oh, this is Rupert. Rupert is here to make me feel better. If you scratch his belly, he tells you that he loves you. All right. Fucking get out. I heard one. He was an emotional support hamster, and I had a great laugh thinking if you took it to a job with him. Like, say if they're shouting inside, all right, Tiddles, go on, you're going through the letterbox, go and scope it out, see what happens. Like, I mean, there's loads of new recruits who are absolutely fantastic, and we obviously hear of these stories, and I think some of them might be a bit like Chinese whispers a little bit, but even if one of them is true, then that's one too many, isn't it? Like stories of people who they're at scene guard and the parents pick them up because they're going to be late home and shit like that. Like I hear all that sort of stuff, and I hope to God, two things. I hope to God it is true because it's funny, and I hope to God it's not true because it's ridiculous.
Yeah. But we had the guy who got grounded. Remember when his dad seized his PDA? Remember I made the reel about it? There's a reel on my Instagram about it, taking the piss out of it, but the guy basically got grounded and then he wasn't allowed to go to work. So, like, his inspector phoned and his dad's like, yeah, he's grounded, mate, he's not coming in. Like, so it was along those lines, basically, and people confirmed that it was very much
He took his job phone, didn't he?
his
He took
job
his
phone.
job
Yeah,
phone, I
and took
think.
the guy's PDA off him. It was because he was playing games or something. He was playing too many games on his phone. So his dad said, right, you're grounded. I'm taking all your electronic devices. One of them was a police issue PDA. So the police ended up going to his house. And I think that, I mean, I'll not say that, but I think the dad, from what I heard, almost got to jail because for like an obstruction, basically. Because the police went to his house and he said, no, he's grounded. He's a cop. We need him to come to work. And you've basically stolen police issue equipment. Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant. Like I said, I think we should hire more people like that. I should just hire them all. Let them all in.
Funny, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we got some funny stories now. This one is from an ex-nurse. So I do get some NHS ones through, and I'm getting more NHS ones through, which I'm quite happy about. I once worked with a nurse who managed to get 3 weeks off for an allergic reaction to birthday cake. Wasn't true. Turns out she just ate too much cake, felt sick, but then enjoyed having the time off. As I saw on her Facebook page, she was chilling in a garden for the majority of it.
To be fair, I've heard of that thing. If you take the start of the set off, you take the whole set off because it just either way you're getting the same amount of sickness. 3 weeks is excessive.
3 weeks ain't bad, is it, for a bad birthday cake? I remember someone telling me, actually, this isn't job related at all. This was a story someone told me, that they worked in a shop and their manager had time off because he said, "Oh, like my brother's died," and they went, "Oh, that's really sad." Anyway, they then came back in for a few days and went off again, saying, "Oh, my mum's died." They said, "Oh, that's really, really bad." And then they came in, went, "Oh, my dad's died." And it was literally, they went through their entire we got ridiculous, like my cousin's died, my cousin's dog's died. Like they just weren't, they just didn't like the job anymore, but they just kept saying all these things that somebody had died. It's fucking crazy. Okay, so we got this one. I attended a domestic instance. When we got there, the whole family were outside, absolutely hammered. Been there. We see the injured party, blood everywhere, and he points out the offender. Now, I'm 6'1" in my boots and 100 kilograms. My crewmate was slightly shorter, but also a big dude. We see the offender. He's about 6'6", about 125 kilos, built like a brick shithouse, and pissed and coked out of his head. We go to talk to him and see if we can reason with him, but straight away he flares up. We go to get hands on, end up scuffling in the street, and he runs back into the house. We end up fighting in the hallway and then in the living room, which was tiny. This guy's absolutely going off on it, so my crewmate gets his parva out and gives him a can right in the face. Does the trick and he goes down. We are all now still on the floor in the living room, fighting to get him cuffed. Tears and snot pouring out of all of us. A colleague runs in, then shouts "Parva, Parva," and empties the entire can on me and my crewmate. Now, this is only a very small room, which has now had 2 cans of Parva emptied into it. My eyes, never like before, snot is pouring through my nose, and this guy's still fighting us. My crewmate is shouting, "Cuff him!" And I remember going, I can't fucking see. Somehow, by touch, I managed to get some cuffs on and somehow on him, and we finally got him under control. Backup had arrived now and they took him out while we lay there coughing, sneezing, and still crying. Fuck knows why my other colleague decided to run in and empty his can of parva, but it just got us more than the offender. Finally, we opened up the patio door to get some fresh air and discovered that the male had a cannabis factory in the patio. If he hadn't tried to fight us, we'd have nicked him outside, probably not gone in the house and not found his cannabis grow. He was charged with ABH and his cousin, assault PC, etc. All in all, not a good night for him. When I came back in later that evening for my shift, my kit still stank of parva and set me off again. And he also says he went back home that night, had a shower, and reactivated all the parva. That's happened to me quite a few times. Normally friendly fire, you're wrestling with somebody, you get a bit on you. I remember once there was a lad, he'd be done for attempted murder or something like that, and he couldn't go north of Carlisle. He was banned from Scotland, so we couldn't go north of Carlisle. So we ended up wrestling with him, and my mate was a bastard. He just used to gas everybody. So I grabbed hold of him. He gassed him. There's about 3 of us in this room, and we're all just rolling around, all getting covered. And on the way home, I had to drive with my arm out the window because of how much it was burning my arm. And then fucking had a shower the next day, set it off again. It's horrendous stuff. That it works though, but it's horrendous.
Yeah, it's good. We had to do that in the army. Like our rooms of, we had to do the CS gas. We had to take our gas masks off, and
You had to do it in the police, but I don't do it anymore. Like when I joined, you used to have to do the big bucket. They would scoosh fresh. It was CS spray. It wasn't Pavadine, it was CS. And you had to then go run about, and it was, yeah.
We had a choice between doing the dip, like you'd get a little bit in your eye, or you'd have the full exposure. And it was funny because I was a special first, and I had the dip test in when I was a special. And then when we went in to do it, like to join full time, everybody who'd been a special before said, "No, I'll just have the dip," because they knew how painful it was. Everybody who'd never done it before wanted the full exposure, and I think they instantly regretted it. It's horrendous stuff. It's not nice, but. I think that's funny, that just his mate running in and fucking gassing him, and we all know that colleague who's very overzealous with their parva, don't we?
I had to get a headlock once, my neighbour. So, and this was on camera because we had a thing called an early intervention at the time, where you have a certain amount of complaints and a certain amount of like a time frame, and you have to then get a body camera because we still don't have them in the West, Police Scotland. And this was the one incident, and this guy kicked off like, fuck, it was a no insurance, and he said, I've got insurance documents in my house. So we took him back to his house, but we knew it was his girlfriend's house, and she was on for dealing drugs. And he took a Kinder Egg full of heroin out of his boxers as soon as we get in, and kicked off, but he must have had that excited delirium, they call it something else now, don't they?
Oh, yeah, ABD.
But he basically kicked off like fuck, and there was the two of us on this guy trying to bring him down. I eventually managed to get him in a headlock, and my neighbour said, "Fuck it, shall I spray him?" And this is all on body cam as well. I said, "Yeah, go for it," but he totally missed him. He just sprayed me because my face was on the other side of this guy's face. So that was basically the famous thing.
So then you had to lock him up on hard mode, basically. It's
nearly died, mate. He ended up going straight to Visas after the house. It was fucked up. We did that, put out an assistance call in the house, and then the body camera and all this fell off. It sounds really dodgy when you say that, but it fell off, and the other cops then turned up, but we then still had to drive him in the cell van down to custody. But they'd shut the old station that I used to work in, and it was like a half an hour drive to the other one, and he became unresponsive in the back of the van. So my neighbour then went into the back, because you used to be able to open the old cage. I don't know if that's still the same in the cell van. Open the cage from the cell van, but then he went into the cage, and the cage shut with the two of them fucking in the cage. So I then had to blue light it to the hospital, and they basically got the dude straight into Visas. It wasn't anything from us, I don't think. I think it was more so the fact that he was full of drugs, and he just had some sort of like adrenaline dump, and he was just totally fucked.
Well, that's the thing with ABD, and isn't it? Like, if you when you get to the point of you've got ABD and it's fully kicked in, you have to go to the hospital, or you're gonna die because your body just goes into shutdown. I remember, I did an interview, and they said sometimes we see officers, like 6 officers arresting somebody. Is that proportionate? And I went, it entirely depends on what the person is like. And they said, like, you could have some big massive bastard and it takes 3 of you, 4 of you. You could have somebody who's 8 stone wet through and it takes 10, because it depends entirely what they've got in the system. There was one lad who, he was, like I said, 8 stone wet through. It took, I think, 9 of us we had to rotate because of how violent he was, because he had ABD. He was just going off on one. And he had to be cuffed. He was on the floor. Limit, you had to take the limit straits off, rest on him, put the limit straits back on. And then, of course, people get tired. So you just have to, and it was all until like paramedics and stuff could arrive. It was horrendous. But someone would have seen that and gone, oh God, that's police brutality. It's not, it's necessary.
The two of us, that was the only time I've ever really had it, and we literally couldn't get control of this dude. And I remember I was holding on to him with my foot against the front door of the house because he was trying to get outside the house again. But we still didn't really know what his link was to the house at the time. We'd thrown heroin all over the living room, so we're like, we can't let him out the house. We ended up having to get a warrant to search the house the next day anyway. But both of us, and again, I'm 6'4". My neighbour's probably about 6 foot at the time, and we just couldn't get this guy on the ground. I think eventually he just hired himself out a wee bit, and we got him cuffed, and then everybody else turned up. But it was wild, because we were looking at each other trying to control him. We were like, literally, there's nothing we can do. We would be on him, and he would just stand up with the two of us on him. We're like,
But people do. They get superhuman strength. They fucking throw you off like rag dolls. And because Parva works on pain and and shock. If you are completely out of it and you can't feel pain, Parva won't work. Which is why, like I said, tasers are really good, because taser, it doesn't matter if you can feel it or not, it'll hit you, and if it gets to get a good connection, you'll go down. But yeah, fucking hell, it sounds horrendous, that, mate. Okay, so let's move on to cake finds now. I've got a few different, few funny stories, but I'll save them for another day, because otherwise this episode will be about 3 hours long. And as much as I would love to stand here talking to you guys for 3 hours, I'm sure you're very, very busy. Okay, so cake finds. This is a cake find I had the other day. So picture this: busy shift already. Thought I'd go to Tesco and buy a meal deal for and some chocolate. I went into Tesco and the meal deal section, picked up a chocolate bar, and then changed my mind. So picked up another one, but I didn't know where the one I'd picked first gone. I thought I must have put it back. We can see where this is going. Anyways, I get to the checkout and pay for my items, get all the way back to the station, check my pockets, and there was the original chocolate bar I thought I'd put back on the shelf. I was now, in fact, a shoplifter. I must have placed it in my pocket, and it was one of those shifts. I quickly returned to the store and got a very large cake fine to pay because I had technically stolen a cake, stolen a chocolate bar from the shop. You fucking criminal. How dare you? You can't do that.
To be fair, yeah, at least they went back. You have to be so careful though, don't you? Because yeah, I remember like doing certain things when I was a cop. I'm like, what if someone watched me and they're going to report me from when it's like an innocent mistake.
For theft, mate.
Technically, they're not. Yeah, but no, but the definition of theft, they're intentional. Their intention to do it wasn't there, so they're not actually committing a theft. But like technically, if we're going off technicality, they did take something without paying for it. But it's like,
In an exam, they would say, at what point did he commit theft? And it'd be when he realized he had the chocolate bar on him, because at that point, then the dishonesty's in there if he decides not to take it back.
what would you do with these auditors, by the way? Just out of curiosity, these.
Oh, so I've dealt with a couple of them, and generally I find I always found they're just like a child who wants attention. So they'd put a camera in your face and they'd want the attention. If you go, what are you doing? Oh, I'm just filming. All right. You fucking walk off. They soon get bored. Um, because what they want is I did a video on this, and the amount of shit I got for it was brilliant. Funny enough, of auditors. Because they say, well, we're just holding the police account because of the corruption. And I'm always like, well, if you want to see real corruption, you go fucking higher up. You go to the senior leadership team, and you go to, if you want the proper corrupt, often you'll see general day-to-day bobbies being corrupt. But they want to just try and trip officers up by coming up with obscure legislation and shit like that. And yeah, so I dealt with a couple. Generally, if you just like leave them to it, as I used to say, like, all right, don't cross over this threshold, and you cross over this threshold, then we're gonna have a problem. And they'd be like, well, what's the problem? Well, then it's like, oh, we'd be trespassing. Oh, trespassing is a civil matter. It is until I have to come out of my station, stop what I'm doing, and then intervene. Then it becomes aggravated trespass under the Public Order Act. And also, just don't be an arsehole and start filming people going in and out of work. You don't know what they're here for. So yeah, generally all right. You, man, did you ever deal with any auditors?
No, I didn't. No, we had them regularly. So we did a lot of patrolling around the sites. So we've got like the Isle of Sheppey, which is basically like, um, the people are gonna have me for this, but it's like inbred central. So it's like Hills of Eyes up there. Yeah, inbred central. So basically, you've kind of got like an island near it where there's loads of different like power plants and stuff. So we'd have to go around there, and the auditors used to be there all the time trying to test you, and I just used to be like, I don't care, mate.
Are you off work today? Yeah, day off work, is it? Yeah, you're not working today. All right, okay, all right. Okay, so last one here, and I just want you to put yourself in this officer's position. So I was out with the police chief and crime commissioner for a ride along. Straight away, some cops might be thinking, "Oh shit." I was coming out of custody, and I reversed into a bread van. Safe to say the scene found it all very entertaining. And he did, actually. Let me try and find it. The officer did send me a photo of the cake they had to bring in. So I probably should have prepped this a little bit better. But can you imagine having the police chief and crime commissioner in with you, and then you fucking go and reverse into a bread van? Did you guys ever get any of the SLT go out with you at any points?
They didn't go out with me, but they did go out.
I think it should be mandatory that SLT go out at least once a month.
Chief Constable that nicked someone with a knife, wasn't there? I can't remember whether it was with a knife or not.
I think I remember that one. That was funny.
But they forget how to police most of them.
Okay. So, Emma and Greg, that is the end of the episode. I hope you two have found this as fun and as exhilarating as I did. Have you got any passing messages? Anything else you would like to say? Any parting messages? And where can people find you?
Blue Light Coaching, at Blue Light Coaching on Instagram. You can find me.
And at Emma_blue light coaching. Yeah, I mean, I think we spread the message of what we like to do quite a lot on our social media anyway. So it's just a case of don't rely on these shit standards to get you through a shift. You've got to improve your own standards and make your own standards high. Because like we've said, like we've already alluded to on the podcast, it's fucking you haven't got many oppos to rely upon, so you've got to be able to rely upon yourself.
I think when it comes to things like mental health as well and welfare, you can't rely on the job to do it for you as well, because it's a tick boxing exercise for them. And as we know, both personally, anecdotally, and from what people have said and what things people have told us, is the welfare, when given, is okay, but majority of the time it's quite piss poor. So you have to be able to sort yourself out and look after yourself, and take control of your own welfare and mental health.
And I think for new people, are not getting like disheartened coming in now, because like I still work with probationers as well coming in, and they're awesome, and they're going to be really, really good cops. And even I've got folk that I work with are not even in yet, and they ask me what it was like, and I'll say, mate, it was the fucking best job in the world. I loved being a cop, fucking loved it. So I think for younger folk in service, listen, like it's still a job, you can make it whatever you want to make it, and yeah, it gets slightly worse each year, but I don't know. I would.
Well, when I